please.
Inshallah, we are live now.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي واجعل لي وزيرا من أهلي هارون أخي اشدد به أزري ويشرك في أمري كي نسبحك كثيرا ونذكرك كثيرا إنك كنت بنا بصيرا. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وارنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وارنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. وصل اللهم على محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه وسلم. ربنا اغفر لنا وارحمنا وأنت خير الراحمين. آمين والحمد لله رب العالمين. آمين. I just wanted to have a long introduction, not only to this particular chapter that we are going to study, but almost to the entire style of the Quran, how it should be read and how it should be interpreted. I am aware that many people, they just told me this directly to my face, that you just interpret the verses of the Quran almost arbitrarily, maybe in a Sufi way. I understand these people who tell me this, or those people who didn't tell me this, but at the same time, they had this kind of suspicion in their heart, but they didn't express it for any reason. Maybe it's none of my business, maybe it is as a result of respect to my age, something, whatever the reason. That's the culture of America. No one criticizes each other. Everybody appreciates, even if it is wrong. But behind it, they have their own feelings reserved in their heart. I don't care. It's none of my business, but I know that it is something that we have to understand. Why we do it in this way? Is it the Sufi way of understanding the Quran at all? Which I don't agree. And yes, everybody commented on the Quran in various ways. I respect all of them as much as I can, benefit from them, but we have to know that one very prevalent understanding of the Quran is based on either literal reading of the Quran or just grammatic structure of the Quran may be taken into account and then read the Quran and understood it within its grammatic allowance, or as much as the grammar allows to understand the Quran, the speech of the eternal knowledge of God. Are they wrong? Not at all. They are absolutely necessary. But one aspect of the Quran is, especially nowadays, among the later generations, very sadly neglected. Sadly neglected. That is why I have to look at the matter and usually I do, that's my principle, that's what I learned from some scholars, which are not famous and also not very well known to general public. If someone listens to our discussions and our interpretations of the Quran for a while, and then uh, the, he or she is suspicious about it, is it that an arbitrary interpretation of the Quran? Something like that. I mean, we have, I have never heard this, and it is not that the great scholars, as far as this person knows, talk in this way. I understand these people who are not expert on the subject. I understand. And of course, they have every right to be suspicious about it. But if a person really knows the interpretation of the Quran and the very early generations of the interpreters, commentators on the Quran, if someone is a little bit aware of it, they wouldn't say that. If someone says or has this idea, it shows that I'm not accusing, and I'm not accusing anyone that why aren't you a Quran specialist, which I am not a specialist either. I'm just collecting from here and there and trying to apply the main principles to the Quran and learn it and share it with you, whatever excites, which side is exciting for me. Of course, in our classes, the main purpose of our class is to, if you like, learn how to read the Quran. Not also, not what I mean by it is reading the alphabet of the Quran, Alif, Ba, Ta, Tha. No, that is not how to read and benefit from the Quran. Which kind of attitude we should have towards the Quran while we are reading it in order to benefit from it. For this purpose, we have to, because we are not specialists on the reading the Quran. For this purpose, what we have to do, we have to pay attention to the teachings of the Quran in order to make it applicable to my practical life, in order to make it applicable to my understanding of the reality of the things around me, reality of my own existence, my own life, and be or develop a confidence within myself that this text is the speech of my creator, and it is really the guidance for my life. With the light, if you like, with the guidance I received from this text, my life became so meaningful for me. And I understand now why I exist, why I am created if someone believes in God, as the creator with a conviction, of course, with certainty. Yeah, I know why I am created now. Otherwise, majority of the people, especially those people who identify themselves with the Quran as the believers of the Quran, they say, I am created by God. Yeah, okay, I know the one who created the universe is my creator. That is necessary, but not sufficient. Definitely not. Why? God created you. Okay, why? What are you going to do here? I mean, we are not going to read the mind of God here, but especially through his speech, I should understand or try to see why he has created me. Of course, every Muslim keeps hearing this verse, very famous verse that says, meaning wise, I created you to worship me. But worship is. What is worship? And why does God ask me to worship him? What is the purpose? Of course, these are serious questions so that I will understand what worship really means. I cannot reduce the word, the content of the word, to only doing certain actions, which for many people is not satisfactory and they don't really do it. Why? Because what am I going to do with doing that? Yeah, I believe in God and he exists. I don't deny him. Of course, there must be something. It is an interesting word. I cannot explain the word other than attributing it to a superpower, and we call it God. That's okay. That is necessary, yes, but it is not satisfactory, so that they don't feel how to get it, how do I get in touch with them. So it must be practical. The interpretation of the or understanding of the Quran must be put in a way that it must be a guide for me, so that it will make sense to me. I will be convinced with it, and then I will feel very secure, comfortable with my existence. That is not much practiced as far as I know. Generally speaking, there are exceptions, but that is not much practiced. First of all, some people, because of this understanding, I'm going to worship. Worship is to follow the rules, do's and don'ts. For those people, Quran is, or the speech of God is, like a book of law. Now we are getting into the subject now. So the book of law has no literature value. It is not a poem. Book of law must be read, written and read and applied literally. You cannot see in it any metaphors, allegories, we will study them. You cannot see in them. There shouldn't be, because it will be very flexible. Everybody will interpret it in one way or another. And fiqh rules, as we know in Islamic tradition, the law is not to be interpreted according to certain ways of application of literature values. And also hard science, I would call them. Hard science is not arts, sciences, physics. If you write a book in chemistry and describe how a chemical reaction is to be realized in the laboratory, you cannot use metaphors. You have to say, put this material next to it under certain heat, etc., degree of heat, and then mix it up, etc., to follow these rules. You cannot write a poem about a how the chemical reaction is to be practiced. But all your understandings, emotional expressions, spiritual training is not like this. You cannot train the spirit with any sentence literally to be followed. Impossible. Because spirit is not trained, educated, or improved through material means. Spirit needs an explanation which is applicable to its own, if you like, characteristics, which has no material side of it. Human feelings. For example, can you describe love in a sentence which is literally expressed? You can go to a dictionary, see how it says, what they say. The feelings of somebody towards something, they have to use other means to explain it. Now, at the most, according to some people, 5, according to some 3% of the Quran is related to law. Now, we have to be careful, if you like. You can take small notes. Now, when you go to the law side, there are some straight law principles, do and don't. But they are so concise that they need to be explained in practical terms. That's why the messengers are employed there. Messengers explain their practice in one's life. But the way they explain the law in physical form, they cannot use metaphorical allegories there. You have to bow this way. You have to make sajda, prostration, this way. You have to turn to Qibla, just this direction where Kaaba is. You cannot write a poem about how to turn, but you can write not only poem, but hundreds of poems when you turn to Kaaba, what you should feel. In one side, you cannot use any metaphorical, allegorical, other similes, etc., in order to describe the physical action. But while you are describing how you should feel, just on the contrary, you should never use literal meaning of any word. We have to understand this. 97% of the Quran is related to ghaib, teaching ghaib in any form. Believe in ghaib, absolute being God, believe in hereafter, believe in angels, believe in revelation, believe in not prophet, a person, apt, a person, a human being, but prophethood, messengership. It's an abstract notion. You have to explain it by definitely not through using a literal meaning. You have to explain it in a non-literal sentences or written in a non-literal sentences. It is impossible to describe angels in literal meaning. As soon as you and I start describing God, angel, hereafter in physical terms, what happens? It is, you have to put a note saying that this is not like this. Angel is not a small baby with wings. Not. But a small baby with me with mm, wings. I'm sorry. What happened? Oh God. Oh, I'm horrible in dealing with technology. Yeah. So, okay. You have to use the symbolic words. Needs to be interpreted. As soon as you start writing a literal, a letter, a sentence, which needs to be read literally, you are wrong. By definition, you are wrong. Because you cannot describe God and angel with a literal language or the meaning of a letter itself. Definitely, you have to see what is allegory there, what is parable there, etc. That is why it is essential for us to know the Quran. The Quran must be read apart from the sentences which describe something to do with law, practical side. But worship God is not practical? No, no. Why? What do you mean by worship? It is a matter of, I mean, sensuality, feelings, understandings. But putting your head on the floor during prostration in your prayer, putting your head is not metaphorical, but it has metaphorical aspect of it. But the physical action is not metaphorical. It is just really an symbolic action, which putting head is a physical action, but it has a symbolic meaning. Symbolic meaning is worship. Putting head is making your physical side, body worship, not your spirit, physical the body on the floor. That is not symbolic, but what it indicates to a symbolic meaning, which is, again, not a literal thing, something to do with your senses. Because, for example, I am worshiping God. Uh, is there any physical God in front of you? No. What do you mean by worshiping God? There is no God there. Now, that is why those people who didn't know how to read the scriptures historically turned the scriptures, what I mean by scripture revelation, into a physical form. What we have, all the people's attitude nowadays, some people's attitude, they have to put the symbols into physical form. Represented, especially in Hinduism, it's very famous, especially symbolizing God in physical form. You cannot do that, right? Absolute being cannot be symbolized. Angels cannot be symbolized. Yeah, for example, let's go back to our traditional, uh, conventional example book. Page and letters, the shape of the letters are physical existence, but the meaning is symbolized in the shape of the letter or the sentence altogether, but letters are physical shape they have. You cannot A or B as you like. You have to follow the same physical pattern, whether you are a believer or non-believer, whatever you are. But the meaning cannot be put into physical form. So if it is not something which doesn't have a physical form, it is an abstract notion, it must have definitely to be interpreted. You cannot look at for example, a word, let's say, that's very simple word, say pen, a pen. If I write a pen, or you write, doesn't matter, on a paper and show it to me, I can I cannot say this is a pen. No, this is a physical thing. It's not a pen. But this physical thing refers to it has a symbolic meaning, refers to something totally abstract. You take this abstract notion and imagine a physical experience you had before. Now, it is very careful. Please be careful about on this matter now at this stage. If you did not have any physical experience of a pen, if I write a pen, can you have any imagination of a pen? You didn't have any experience of a pen. Why is it so important? We had never have any physical experience of God, any physical experience of angels, any physical experience of the message of God, speech of God, any physical experience of prophethood. When we look at the prophet, physical being, it is not prophethood. It is a man, but its meaning side demonstrates prophethood, messengership. It means message bearing. Now, we did not experience any hereafter. We did not experience any hell and paradise. So when God says, I am all powerful, I am all knowledgeable, I have not experienced the knowledge of God. I have not experienced the power of God. So I cannot have any objectification in my mind, so that when I say power of God, that is the like the pen I experienced before. No, what has to be done in order to describe me, how the angels are, how the hereafter next creation is, how God's attributes are, how the message of God in its meaning form is. What is the messengership side of the person, for example, Jesus of Muhammad, peace be upon them. Apart from the physical side, we have not experienced. I have never experienced the messengership. I have never experienced how the revelation receive, is revealed to me. So only if I have an objectification of something previously experienced, be careful, then you can use a literal, you can use a word which says the pen or a pen. You say, I like this word. You can liken it, but you cannot liken any description of anything which you did not experience before. It has to be presented in a completely different way using metonymy, paradox, ellipse, concise explanations, tropical uh, expressions, symbolism, etc. Analogies, so that you can have, I don't, you know what I have experienced in this world? It is something like this, but it is not exactly like that. The best example is fire in hell, burning, bursting, angry, saying, is there any more? Yeah, whatever you put in fire, which turns into, we can burn, fire never gets satisfied in, oh, I don't have any more. The Quran says the hell of fire is like this, but not exactly. This is the worldly experience. So 97% of the Quran, speech of God, is related to subjects, topics, which we had no previously experienced, which are called the matters of belief in ghaib. So, do you notice how extremely essential to know that Quran, 97% of the Quran can never, ever be read literally. Impossible. By its nature, it is impossible. So, what happened historically? If you are a literature teacher, if you have 1,000 students and ask them in an exam form, well, it doesn't have to be an exam, but, or given homework assignment to be done at home, in your home. Go and then do it there and bring it to me. The poem, if the poem is so deep, symbolic expressions are full of it, you will get 1,000 different papers interpreting this poem. None of them is exactly the same. So what happened? It looked like, which is to a very 99% possibility that you cannot get equal interpretation of the same poem by two people, the same exactly. Now, what happens now? It opens the way to interpret these teachings of the Quran. Of course, we established from the beginning, I need to remember, I felt that, not subject to law prescribing ayat, verses of the Quran. No. 3% is always exceptional, which is not our subject in our studies. That is why we treat the Quran, whatever we read, as if 100%, because when there is something, a fiqh matter, how to distribute the inheritance, we pass. Why? It is not my specialty. I have not been trained in it at all, so I have no word to say about it. So I'd say, leave it to the specialist experts there. Go and ask them. I don't know, and pass. It doesn't mean that they are not important. No, they are. But it's not my specialty. Yeah, and let's say if there is an uh, a professor in architecture. Can you go to have a surgery by the professor, architecture professor? No. Architecture professor will say, yes, I am very, I mean, familiar with the matters related to architecture, but I don't know nothing about medicine. That's understandable. Everybody understands that. So we have to acknowledge our limits. So what happened? The 97% of the Quran is open to interpretations. And people started interpreting the verse this way, that way, or qualified, non-qualified, experts or non-experts people, arbitrary interpretations started spreading. The scholars who are serious about it said this, oh no, we have to close this door. Because if you are not expert, which general public is not experts on it, close it. How? Look, if you don't know, don't interpret it, just follow what the Quran says. The pioneer of this is Ahmed ibn Hanbal. Said, no, God says this, God says, turn to my wage, my face. That's it. Do you know which? No, you don't know. Then shut up. Don't make interpretations. Why? Everybody starts interpreting in this way or another way. Okay. What happened in the course of time? The very good intention of the scholars to give a limitations and leave it to scholarship of some expertise on these matters only to them and don't open the door to general public. So general public is left with concerning only 3% of the Quran. And since it was the interest of the general public, 999 thousandths of the population's interest area, the sultans, the kings, encouraged the education institutions, which are known as madrasas, to study 3% of the Quran and teach people how to practice law, fiqh. You understand the good intention turned into an abuse by the power centers, sultans, in order to make the people follow the law and be obedient, not try to understand the Quran so that they may learn how to be a free man. Seeing that a son of a man, sultan, is not different from a son of a man, me. Why should I give an authority to him? Because he is the son of another man. I am the son of another man. Why shouldn't I? So it it is the only way to shut the minds of the people not to feel the freedom that the Quran gives them to practice in their life. That is a political development we have to be sure about. It's very important. We have to know that this change of the good intention of the real Salaf people, not the Salafi movement, it is ridiculous, but Salaf people with a good intention turned into a tool of exploiting the innocent people's being a subject of a king, obedient. It lasted until now, in some parts, still continues. of the Muslim world. The other parts are opportunist, opportunist people. Dictators took over the Sultanate under the name of democracy. That is the horrible situation of the Muslim world. There is no freedom in the Muslim world. Either the king or dictators. I mean, the kingdom is another dictator, but at least they say it clearly that I am the king. That's it, man. You cannot apply to me the election. You can elect the parliament, not me. But dictators say, I am elected by the voters. Voters elected me. So the typical example is in Syria, in Egypt. No, the voters elected me. Turkey. Ridiculous. Anyways, so we have to know the political implications of it, economical effects, impact on it, international politics side of it. We have to know. Definitely, we have to know economical impact of this matter. So why, for example, if we study the Quran as it deserves to be, a Muslim community in general, at least they hear the symbolic teachings and how should really not the physical side of me, how much I should pay, etc., what I should eat, what not I should eat, and I don't know, I shouldn't gamble. Apart from this, which kind of personality I should develop, which kind of understanding of life I should have and develop and make myself a subject of God's caliph on earth, acting on his name, taking care of the earth on his name, and as assigning as my, if you like, Lord, Rabb, as God only, nobody else, as my Ilah, God only, but nobody else. My object, my ultimate object is God only, is the hereafter only. Prepare myself for the hereafter only while I am using this word, benefiting from the word because I am the caliph on earth. I have to use, cultivate the land, see what is hidden under the soil, see what is hidden in the sun rays, how they really display the unimaginable manifestations of the Creator's qualities to me in physical form, manifestations, not the qualities themselves, manifestations. Don't forget this condition. So we have we have to understand that Quran, yes, must be studied under the teaching or instructions of experts by everyone in order to be able to make sense of the 97% of it, so that it will educate me, train me, and also elevate me in my being. I am not a physical body only. I am not going to do the things only for their physical forms. While I am paying my charity, zakat, which is called, while I am fasting, I am not only going to prevent myself from eating, drinking, etc., while I am fasting, but also protecting myself from
Hello?
Brother Lee, we
privilege.
lost your voice.
You lost your voice? Okay, let me see. How about now?
You're
Now
back.
you're back. Good.
Okay now? Maybe my internet connection is weak. Again, I met.
We can hear you now.
Okay. So thank you for reminding. Oh, okay, it is wrong again. All right. Let me go back. Sorry for my. Okay. Let me see now. Okay. What's that? Okay. For example, there are some words used in the Quran which says, as we are going to read it, وَمَا إِدْرَاكَ مَا الْعَقَبَةُ. It means there is nothing, I mean, literal meaning, there is nothing to tell you what Aqaba is, although this word is coming from a certain known origin of the word in the language. Now and then, may have been changed the meaning a little bit, but still known to the people. But the Quran says, no, 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 no. Not the literal meaning that you learn. I mean completely different, because Quran, the aim of the Quran is to teach ghaib, to give evidence about ghaib, and so that it will um, not, what is the word? Let me think. Prepare for human spirit, human soul, human mind, at least to confirm its existence. Necessarily must be so. For example, when you read the book, you don't see the meaning, but definitely you confirm that if it is written a book, which meaning, which is called the book, so it must have some meaning, meaningful sentences. You definitely believe that there is a meaning. So the one who wrote the book has knowledge. He reflected his knowledge through these letters, physical things, but these physical things are symbolic. If I say, or now we are going into another important aspect of reading the Quran that is very crucial again. If somebody tells me, read this book, I say, okay, I'm going to read the book. Look, that is very, very essential in order to read or understand the Quran. This is an example. Again, of course, we have to use symbolic means, so allegories, metaphors, etc. So if I say, look, this is a paper, there is a book in front of me now. This is a paper, and there are some physical existence on it, the traces of ink, okay? No, it is not the matter. No, 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 no. The purpose is to see the symbols in it, what it means, which cannot be presented in physical form. But still, if someone asks you to read the book, what are you expected to do? Take the paper and look at the traces of the ink. But don't say, oh, this paper is yellowish, the ink is black, and the size of the letters are 1 inch or an inch and a half, and they are thick. Well, this is not reading the book, but at the same time, you cannot get the symbolic meaning which is inscribed within the book and have a meaning out of it without reading the book. Ah, when God says, look at the mountain, look at the tree, look at the birds flying above you in rows. No, no, no. This is symbolic. Yeah, it is correct. But how are you going to read and get the symbolic meaning in it without looking at the mountain exactly in its physical form? Without examining how the mountains are formed exactly in its form? Without looking at the sky and see the birds flying in rows. You cannot do that. But the Quran doesn't say at all. When I ask you to read the book, I don't mean that look at the book, that's it. Look at it and measure the physical things there. It is ridiculous. It is ridiculous. So when you look at the birds and just flying above you, I am looking at them and how high they are, how many are there, and the row is this much long. This shape is like this, and no symbolic meaning. They have to be together. Now, for example, if you are reading a description of hell or paradise, let's speak about paradise today. So, and the paradise is described in such a way that when you are there, you should feel no the sun, no زمهرير. لا يرون فيها شمسا ولا زمهريرا. What does it mean? Not hot, not cold, that perfect cool. So دانية عليهم ظلالها, and the trees, the shadows of the trees are that covering them came down on them. وذللت قطوفها تذليلا. It is impossible when you read the beauty of the literature, beauty of the music, beauty of poem, and it also endless meanings inscribed in them. So when you say, look, can you imagine? We are talking now together. Can you imagine we are in a garden, not hot, not cold, not damp? And also you are asking the trees to come down with the clusters of fruits, whatever they are, maybe bananas, maybe grapes, maybe fruit, all sorts of fruits, tazlila, just come to you, next to you, and you can pick up with no difficulty. They are just perfectly right. In this world, when the fruit is perfectly right, it is difficult to pick up. When they are not right, you have to use a sharp knife to cut them from their branches. This is my physical experience. I have to experience this in one way or another. Excuse me. And then, can I say, this is Jannah? This is paradise? No. Paradise is another type of creation that you have never ever experienced, so that you cannot liken it. Remember my pen example? What you have to do, you have to take this just in parable, just a metaphor, and read the symbolic meaning in it. It means, I think, whatever is going to be created that I cannot imagine in this world, but must be perfectly fitting my expectations. That ideal type, I cannot imagine how ideal it is. And I cannot see any example of it in this world exactly the same. What I did, physical experiences necessary as I have to look at the book, read it physically, and also the purpose is not that. Purpose to have an experience in order to imagine, be careful with the word, which satisfy your feelings at the highest level that you cannot put an end to it. That is paradise. That is the fruit of Iman. You cannot get to the end of it. That is the Quran. You have to read it. You have to do physical things that it ascribes it. For example, you know the fire that I'm going to punish those people who deny the truth and worship nature. I would call it not idol. Now, the idol of this age is nature. Nature products, natural water, natural gas, natural all sort of things, natural products. Okay, take the nature with you and ask it in the next creation to give you something. Can you get satisfaction in your heart? Your heart expects eternal happiness. You can get the fruit. It only satisfies your body and temporal pleasure, taste, and then disappears. Your heart is not. Next creation, it is promised in the speech of God who created the eternal satisfaction, the need of eternal satisfaction in my feelings, who says, this is promise that I put in your feelings. I am going to fulfill it in another creation. I'm going to do it. Definitely, this is a promise from me. I gave this feeling, the need to you. So that is, I'm going to give you a paradise. You can satisfy it. If you deny and say that nature will provide it to you in this world, now you get the degree which just contradicts your reality, your spiritual reality. Physical reality is satisfied here, and your body engraved, and it's already rotten there. Finish. But your spirit is now subject to the next creation with the next body within the conditions of the next creation, which will function according to the requirements of the next creation. Then you will be given nature, meta to satisfy you, not me. I am sorry. I am sorry. You didn't. You denied the message. You denied the news. Of course, this is valid only for those people who received the message, by the way. That is another subject, not today's subject. Now, okay, it is like fire, a lean, very severe. You cannot stand it. Why is it fire? Okay, try. Try in this word, because when the Quran uses fire, you physically have to experience fire. Just get next to it, put your hand on it, and you will see whether I can stand. And you cannot stand. It means something you can ever never stand for. It is punishment. Because if you don't receive the Creator's mercy, the soil itself, the atoms of the soil itself, never ever will be able or is able to create, to give existence to the fruit you are eating, to the vegetables you are eating, to the animals that they graze on, the grass grown on it. Never. What will happen? You will say, I am in need of many things and nothing that I can get. That is fire. Not the flame that I am using is the flame which is going to be created in the next creation. No, I have not experienced it. I cannot see it. That's why these descriptions are necessary not to be expressed not in literature sense, literal meaning. Then these verses of the Quran, 97% of the verses of the Quran should not, cannot be read literally. That's what we have to understand. Although it may open up a door which gives the opportunist people to interpret it in an arbitrarily wrong way, which is not the aim of the Quran. Of course, it needs some sort of discipline. Of course, it needs to be done within the grammatic structures, morphology, syntax of the Quran. But at the same time, symbols are taken personally. It is inevitable. So this opportunist people, they will exploit the freedom of interpreting it, should not really make us fear that we should close this door and reduce the Quran as only a text of codification. It is impossible. It is against the nature of the teaching of the Quran, which is the subject of belief in ghaib. Because I need guidance in ghaib. I don't need guidance how to cultivate the earth. I don't need guidance how to make the computer. From my creator, I can know and find out how the order of the universe works. But when I make my computer, the human race, of course, not me, so human race makes the computer, finds out the rules of working of the computer within the order of the universe, they are expected to see the knowledge, wisdom, mercy ingrained in the existence of this universe, and it is mode of creation, which means order, we call it simply. In this mode of this creation, you can find out uh, the way how to make the computer. You don't need God's guidance because God's guidance is already within your ability, capacity to find it out, and within the capacity of the order already is there. It is only up to you to work out. But what is not there, when you find the computer, how are you going to make out of this experience your belief in hype? Ah, that is what I have to train myself about. This I have to train myself. That is why the Quran must be read very carefully. From one aspect, 97% we are talking about, it needs physical experience. It means go to the universe, find out the order, how can I make the fastest means of communication. Yes, you have to do it as a caliph on earth. But at the same time, the ultimate purpose of this caliph is, as a result of this finding out of the order, how it works, and making your computer, making your fastest means of transportation, or transmitting the voices, your whatever you want to say to somebody, for example, nowadays, sending a text or making a telephone call or a video meetings, etc. While you are doing this, you have to do it, and you have to realize, oh, look, in the existence of the universe, these things are included, somehow put in a way that the human endeavor is encouraged to find them out. But the purpose is to get more and more excited about the mercy, knowledge, wisdom, or providing the things for human beings, and introducing himself through these means, and manifesting his qualities, and making it more and more obvious to human and the human race to get to know how the ghaib, the creator's qualities are limitless, endless. How absolute they are. How absolute the order, the creator of the universe, which means my creator, how absolute qualities my creator has. I belong to him. There is no fear for me in the world. I am a product of an absolute being with absolute qualities, absolute knowledge, absolute justice, absolute wisdom, absolute will, free will. Whatever he wants, he can create it with no difficulty, absolute power or absolute qualities. I am his product, which means I belong to him. That is the only source of security for a human being, everyone. Only source of security, this realization. In order to put it into practice, we have to read the Quran, bearing in mind what we have been talking about. Otherwise, you cannot believe in ghaib. You can make sense of the necessity of the existence of God only. There must be something which is called God in tradition and religious tradition, who created the universe. That's it. But human beings are qualified with many other tools, that these tools need to be put into practice in the physical world, so that we have to experience the world and then discover what is hidden in it, like reading a book. You have to read the book in order to understand the meaning. Without reading the book, looking at the book, and learning how to read a book, you cannot get the meaning. But looking at the book, never forget, as a human being, your purpose of existence is not to look at the book only and be able to read it, but never get the meaning. No, both. All Quranic, 90% of the Quranic verses must be read within the frame of this understanding. Otherwise, Quran turns into a codification book, only like what happened to the how do you say, feature of Torah, turned it into a codification book, because scholars were worrying that the book is opening the way to interpret, to be interpreted by anyone. This fear turned into exploitation and driven away all people from studying the Quran, turned their face to practical side of hadith narrations, only practices. Because hadith narrations only can narrate what? Physical action of the Prophet. Because people can see only the physical action of the Prophet, not the heart, not the mind. Because heart and mind of the Prophet, including the physical, but heart and mind of the Prophet is also trained by his, if you like, employer, God, who employed him as a messenger. And this training is presented to us through the Quran. Of course, there are some hadiths or the narrations from the Prophet which includes in it somehow a little bit explanation of the Quranic meanings, what the verses mean, or practice side of it in terms of moral, ethical teaching. But they are all from the Quran. So you can only understand what the Prophet has experienced in his heart, in his mind, in his spirit, is from the Quran. Hadith only narrates the physical photograph, picture, video of the behavior of the Prophet. You can see, but you don't know what's going on in his heart, in his mind, feelings. Why all the attentions now distracted from the Quran and turned to Hadith studies? Still now, you go to a mosque, it is the common practice of the ordinary people to read the Hadith, not the Quran, because they are disabled to read the Quran. They are afraid of it. They say, no, it needs great scholarship, and reduce the Quran only to a third, 3% of it. So it is what the Quran itself says. The Prophet in the Quran, again, symbolic teaching, complains God that my ummah has left the Quran, send it to immigration far away to another country. It means far away from him. Yeah. Quran became mahjur in the language of the Quran. So it means far away, sent into immigration to another place is nothing to do with me anymore. Why? Because of these kind of attitudes. So if you prevent everyone and every new generation from studying the the Quran for its own purpose, to teach how to establish and uh, make it firm our belief in ghaib by reading the guidance of the Quran and trying to understand their parabolic, I mean, in general, let's say, symbolic teachings. That's an umbrella term. Well, if we have time, we will study, but I don't think we will study which kind of symbolic teachings are employed in the Quran. Inshallah, if not today, or no, maybe we may start a little bit so we can go through it. Which kind of literature means have been employed in the Quran. Anyway, that is another subject. The next stage now, today's stage, what is the minds of the people, spiritual developments and improvements of the people are disabled because of this fear. By New generation also grew up with hadith and also physical actions, do's and don'ts of the Quran. So they are not interested in trying to see and learn how to really legitimately become an expert on reading the symbolic meanings of the Quran. It doesn't mean that never misunderstood me. I mean, without taking any limitations of the grammatic structure side of it and also physical limitations of it in this word, just going into irrelevant points out of the purpose of the Quran, uh, it doesn't mean that it needs a little bit serious concern and education, but new generation were not introduced into this need. There is no such. I don't know whether did you hear this? Did you hear anyone in a group who is studying it? I mean, maybe small exceptions. In general, in any country which is called Muslims country, I wouldn't say Islamic, of course, Islamic is a very sacred word for me. Muslim, you and me, where we were born, that they are studying this kind of things without really going out of the boundaries of certain. Of course, any symbolic meaning must have a boundary, a limitations. You cannot go from this beyond because the main principle in order to try to understand the symbolic meaning is the purpose of the speech of God. Main thing, why God speaks to me. That is the main question in order to teach me ghaib. So ghaib is absolute. There is no way to make speculations about the absolute, but spirit may have some sort of, if you like, sample example of it. If you like, it's not the right word. I know the sample is not word, but this some sort of imagination taken from the word and multiplied by infinite. But do you know the equation now? And anything that you can imagine, the taste you can imagine here, through your experience, multiplied by infinite equals to infinite, beyond the capacity of human being. But not really final meaning, but only, oh, something like this, but in an eternal way. Something like this, but in an absolute way, which is beyond my comprehension. So there is limit, there are boundaries, but we need to study at least a little bit. No way. It is all closed nowadays. That is why some people may think in our classes we are arbitrarily interpreting the verses which we have never heard from great sheikh, shuyukh. Yeah, you have not, you may not. Some small pieces you might have heard of it, but not a principle. And you say, Ali, for example, or the books I study, they say, yo, are you a sheikh? No. Imam? No. Mufti? No. And scholar? Ustaz? No. Huh? Who are you, Ali? Huh? And they call me Dr. Ali. Now, I'm not personifying it. I'm using myself as an example. Dr. Ali, what does it mean? I studied something, nothing to do with really Islamic and the Quranic studies in Europe. Oh, in Europe, you will learn Islam. Come on, don't make me laugh. Correct. I agree. So I have no title. And those people who speak in this way may not have no title because they don't speak with hard science of grammar, Arabic, uh, how do you say, lexian meaning, dictionary meaning. They don't speak like this. I don't. And I keep saying that you can never ever understand the Quran with dictionary meaning of the words. Quran has its own concepts, unique to its own usage. It makes the meaning or gives the meaning to any concept that we are going to study now. Qarya, what does it mean? Yeah, fire in a flame. What does it mean? وما أدراك ما هي نار حامية. Oh, the word is, do you know what it is? You cannot really liken it to anything. It is something like, okay, but look at something like fire, hamia, so hot that even iron cannot stand without melting in it. But you can only imagine this fire, then I will suffer a, from a pain like uh, falling into this kind of fire. But don't forget, like, not exactly. I cannot. That's it. If you deny the reality, turn your face and become egoistic, claim that you exist by yourself and you have to use your free will as you like, not trying to see the purpose of your creator in creating you, you will end up with this kind of feelings. You cannot get out of it. And you have to take it seriously. I have to take it seriously if it is the truth. What shall I do? Is it really the truth or not? I mean, there is a frightening language here which we are going to read. That's why I went through Al-Qariya, Mal-Qariya, Wama Idraka Mal-Qariya. I said, if I study these verses with the literal meaning, let me see what the translator say. The calamity, what is the calamity? What will explain to you what the calamity is? On a day when people will be like scattered moths. You know, they want fire, heat. As they get close, they are burnt and run away, fell down. And the mountains like the tufts of wool. Oh, what? The mountains? Like a tufts of wool? Scattered around, flying in the air. Mountains? Yeah, this is the day. What? Oh, so what am I going to do within the conditions of this kind of creation? How my feelings are frightened. If you deny the truth, your spirit will find itself in a situation which is like this. No point of reference, no point of dependence, no security. You cannot really seek refuge with anything in this matter. Matter is dumb, deaf, blind, with no quality of itself. Wow. I said, we have to interpret this in order to make it practical for me. But when we interpreted, people definitely will think that no, nobody makes this like this interpretations that we do in our classes, Quran study classes. So who are you? Isn't that an arbitrary interpretation? It may be just a speculative understanding of the word. I said, yeah, it is a legitimate question, legitimate concern, because people are not familiar with this approach. Unfortunately, it is just swollen or buried in history. 1,000 to 300 year, 300, uh, yeah, 1,300 years ago, it never revived again. It got its blow so much strong, and then it is forgotten almost by the majority of the people, of course. I said, no, no, we cannot study this kind of verses of the Quran, and we have to understand that the Quran cannot be read like this as we are used to. Why? We should read these, all the Quran, 97% of the Quran, in a different way than we are accustomed with, we are presented to. Why? There must be a reason, and this reason must be explained. That's why I said to myself, we need one or two classes to explain why the Quran should not be read as we are presented so far. And it needs to be read in another way as it deserves to its nature, if you like, the purpose, if you like. So I said, okay, there is no study for one day at this or two, or maybe not two, but one. I was expecting myself to go into which kind of uh, methods or literature means are used here. So, inshallah, what shall we do next week now? We have to, let me tell you from now on which kind of means, tools are employed in the Quran. I just went through quickly through the internet the dictionary explanations of this, what metaphor is, what allegory is, analogy is, etc., and then give practical examples of it. But unfortunately, I have not taken notes. That's what I understood. I made a big mistake. I didn't study the literature. It is not my specialty. It takes a long years of studies and then go back to the Quranic descriptions of anything related to ghaib again. It means 97% of the Quran, and see the examples of metaphors, for example, analogies, for example, similes, for example. I haven't studied that. I don't know. The young people should study it. Examples of this, examples of that. There are many that we are going to, inshallah. At least we have to know that this kind of things and parables, but we read a lot of stories in the Quran, parables in the Quran. The owner of the two gardens behaved in this way. And there were two people doing this, and for example, the very important thing that we raised the mountain Sinai over the people of the children of Israel. Mountain Sinai raised up. Some people say, in this word, there is no sign. So it may be a cloud that the scholars are now in trouble. It may be a cloud, seemed to be the mountain today, very heavy, dark, maybe rain clouds. Well, now it means something. It represents something. So it doesn't have to be a mountain, really. Mountain is, and according to which tools of literature, means of literature, uh, this mountain really is a good example of it and needs to be interpreted. Next week, inshallah, if not the whole class, but at least to the beginning, we have to start, inshallah, from there, from definition of allegory and give one simple example, not from the Quran, not necessarily, because I haven't studied that, I must admit. It was my mistake, and now it is too late. Young generation should feel the need for it. They have to study the Quran, see the examples of allegories, parables, for example, figurative speeches or the figurative languages, or not examples. So you will see thousands of them, or at least some. For example, the best example is this. Best example is this. So it will open up the minds of the reader that, oh, of course, the mountain raising up means something. Of course, it doesn't mean at the same time that it cannot happen by not by physical means. Oh, the creator of the universe, do you think it is not possible? It is possible. So God manifested himself on Mount Sinai again. And as soon as he manifested himself, Mount Sinai crumbled down and became dust, and Moses fell on the ground, swoon. It means unconscious. Couldn't stand it. What does it mean for me? I haven't seen Moses. I haven't seen the mountain crumbled somewhere. Mount Sinai is still there. It is not crumbled. Physically, it is there. What do you mean? Of course, you have to interpret them, understand them. So, what do they represent? What shall I do with them now? Shall I go and make an archaeological studies to find out that a mountain is crumbled down and became a dust? Everywhere is dust. Come on, it is not the way. It is not the purpose of the Quran to make uh, activate. What did they say? Cultivate? No. Come on. Digging the earth and finding out the old historical things. What is the word for it?
Archaeological.
No, yeah.
Excavate.
Excavate.
Evet.
Sorry, thank you very much. Thank you. So, but it's not, the Quran is not encouraging me to go and do that, but do something so that I can, for example, I can give you a clue of it. Going into the atoms and electrons, how do they work? Find out how the electrical system or electrical power is created out of this by God. It means crumbling it into deeper and deeper pieces, and then trying to understand the principles of creation there and finding out unimaginable manifestations of the fine-tuned God's names there to find out. Don't be afraid. Go and study there. Don't be afraid. So it doesn't mean that the mountain is, come on, anything solid. For example, atomic energy. No, atom is a mountain. When you really, what is the word? Not explode. Make it into pieces. There must be a physical word for it. And in the physical means in physics studies. Going into the smaller pieces of atom. Does anybody know it? I don't know. But I know in another language. Parçalamak in Turkish. uh, I don't know. For example, do that and find out the manifestations of the names of God there. So exciting. See that, oh, I thought only the names of beauty and wisdom are manifested on flowers and trees and maybe the creation of moon, etc. But within the atom also, everywhere, it must be absolute, unimaginable. Can you imagine? The same wisdom is manifesting itself in hidden side of the atom. Come on, crumble it. Oh man, that is how we should read the Quran. I'm very excited if anybody does this sort of study and gives us the examples. Inshallah, young people, they have to do that. Inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Any question? Any concern? Please.
Brother Ali, there's a comment that came a little earlier in the chat box.
In the chat. Let me go there and see. Oh, okay. Taya Simons. Could this mean that our Prophet Muhammad والسلام, in relaying the Quran couldn't liken what he was inspired by from Allah to anything except what he experienced in his life, and thus is expressing it based on his own capacity? I think we didn't say this. I think we didn't say this, my beloved sister Taya. No, but it means together. He must be the instructor. How to put it in physical terms within this word? Quran instructs the symbolic meaning in it, so that we should learn it from the way that the Quran describes how the worship, human worship, it means relationship between me and my creator, must be established and experienced by my spirit. That the hadith narrations cannot transfer the feelings of the prophet. That's what I meant. If I understood your comment correctly, uh, the prophetic teaching in its entirety, feelings, understandings, plus physical side of the practice, all must be instructed by the creator, because I need an example, physical existence of an example, in order to adjust my life to the conditions of this world, because I have mind, I have intelligence, I have intellect, I am an intelligent person, I am created in this way, I have feelings, emotions, I have soul, spirit, which is given to me directly by my God in order to get to know him. I have body, I have tongue. All of them must be employed in worship of God. The prophet is an example of it, but we can only see in physical actions and narrate the physical actions. Even we can only narrate the physical appearance of the mushaf. So the meaning must be explained and written, of course, and also the meaning must be experienced with the people, but the meaning cannot be put in physical form. That's, I said, I don't know whether I understood you perfectly or correctly, but if I misunderstood you, please forgive me, and you can
I can
explain.
I
Yeah.
can try to explain. I was just asking that since we cannot express, God in um, any tangible way, He's limitless. Did that also happen with the prophet? Is what I was like asking. Like when he was inspired and Jibril came to him. when he's relaying that message back to us and letting us know what God inspired inside of him, is he only able to express that based on what he has known in his life. And is that why we sort of get the description of heaven as a garden, and rivers under the gardens and things like that, because that is what heaven is to him? Or is this what what God spoke to him? You get what I'm trying to say? Not trying to be disrespectful at all. I'm just trying to understand.
No, not at all. No. I never understood from your comment and from this speech as well any sign of disrespect. And no, we are friends. And me, come on.
Okay.
So you can say what are you talking about, Ali? It didn't make sense to me. Quite normal. Come on, say it if you feel like that. But of course, we have to respect each other, but still express yourself. No. That is something else. Now, what I'm still going to repeat the same thing. What the prophet felt like a human being, educated by the Creator. It must be so because we need a perfect example. Human beings need a perfect example. If there was no example for me, I cannot really convince myself that I have to follow this person. Now, the prophets are employed for this purpose. They are educated, trained, they must be prepared themselves for this mission, not in order to become a prophet, but they must have this capacity, at least within their own free will. So God says, oh, this guy is the best candidate. So I can employ him and also complete his shortcomings, because he is the best example possible in the created form. So what we can do, we can only learn from him. We don't know what he has in his own feelings. We don't know. What we can only see, what we could see as human beings. That is the better we have to understand. Why this is the reality? Because the Quran is there. It means the message is there. Messenger is there. We cannot imagine a messenger without the message. We cannot imagine a message without the messenger. Okay, there must be together. That's why revelation must be understood in a alliance with, or supported with, the employment of the messenger in the human form. Otherwise, it doesn't function. Without the message, prophet cannot be my example, or anybody whose mission is prophethood. If it is not receiving the message from God or repeating the same message previously revealed, that is another subject. But under the guidance, supervision of the Creator. But at the same time, message without prophet, prophet without message, or the messenger without the message doesn't function for me. But what I can see only, prophet with the message. Prophet with the message. So prophet said, here is the Quran. The message is not spoiled, not altered. Is a perfect, the text is here. So read the text as a human being, try to understand it and see my life and try to see the correlation between them. So you can guess, as much as you understand the message, the meaning or feelings I have in my actions. Do you understand? This is the relationship, message, the messenger, and me here. So I am looking at the behavior of the prophet, learning from him, physical actions, and also moral advices, some sort of exemplary behavior that the Quran teaches to human beings to adapt for themselves. So the message is there, the message is there, the messenger is there. So that is only thing for me to understand that I have, if I don't concentrate on the Quran and only look at the behavior of the Prophet, what I do, I see the physical actions only. If I don't uh, read the Quran without taking notice of the example of the messenger, what happens now? I am with an abstract concepts, no physical example for me, but I am living in a physical world. It doesn't function. So they must be combined. We cannot talk about the feelings of the Prophet, but we can talk about the content of the Quran, which is the teacher of the feelings of the Prophet at the same time. But everybody understands the Quran according to his capacity. I cannot say that my understanding of the message of the Quran is exactly the same as the Prophet's understanding of the message of the Quran. But I can say, if I have authentic narrations, my physical action is exactly the action of the Prophet, like the action of the Prophet. I can say this because physical action is observable for me, but the feelings are not. That is the difference between my, excuse me, my perception of the feelings, my perception of the physical actions. This is completely different from what exactly the Prophet in his physical life, in his emotional life, feelings, understandings, etc. That belongs to him. My perception belongs to me. We need to make this distinction. I don't know whether it is any help for you, Taya. Okay. Mm, I think we have to stop. Oh, we are 20 minutes late. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. Thank you for your patience. Inshallah, next week we will continue this subject and then go into Al-Qari'ah, the chapter, inshallah.